You know, few things exemplify the way collectivist Democrats view the principles of rights and the supposed constitutional rules as impediments in their quest to acquire power than this story. Because of their anger that conservative justices might possibly uphold the Second Amendment, a gaggle of hardcore left-wing Democrat senators have decided that they're going to follow in the footsteps of their socialistic predecessor, FDR, and threatened to pack the Supreme Court. Hi everyone, I'm Gardner Goldsmith for MRC TV, and indeed we can hear more of the growling of those collectivist wolves at the door as Ron Blitzer wrote for Fox News a pack of slobbering Democrats just warned the justices of the Supreme Court that if they don't change their ways, i.e. lean more collectivist, especially when it comes to destroying the right to keep and bear arms, the Democrats might expand the court more than the Federal Reserve has expanded the money supply. The ominous and unusual warning was delivered as part of a brief filed Monday in a case related to a New York City gun law. Senators Sheldon Whitehouse, Democrat of Rhode Island, Richard Hero Blumenthal, Democrat of Connecticut, Mazie Hirono, Democrat of Hawaii, Richard Durbin, Democrat of Illinois, and Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat of New York, referenced rulings by the court's conservative majority and claiming it is suffering from some sort of affliction, which must be remedied. And Senator Whitehouse and his fellow charmers even went so far as to use biblical language in their missive. The Supreme Court is not well, and the people know it, the brief said. Perhaps the court can heal itself before the public demands it be restructured in order to reduce the influence of politics. You hear that? Not only is it an echo of physician heal thyself, this gang of dole sponges and tyrannical thinkers actually says that they want to reduce the influence of politics by injecting the use of political force for political ends. What if we went up to those people in DC and said, hey, you know what? Since you want to pack the Supreme Court, we've decided to pack your office, and you won't be deciding just for yourself how you're going to vote. We have 4 more people. Come on in, yeah. Oh yeah, we all voted, and this is the way you're going to vote. And then later we're going to arbitrarily vote to take away your rights. Now, one of the things that might not have dawned on these checker players is that rights are non-political. By definition, they exist prior to and apart from the polis. In fact, the existence of the polis, which requires the taking of people's money in order to function, is actually an infringement on rights. It can only occur at the expense of rights. And what do the wolves want for the court that will be deciding on our rights? Democratic candidates, including former Representative Beto O'Rourke of Texas and Senators Cory Booker of New Jersey, Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, Kamala Harris of California, and Gillibrand, all have signaled an openness to expanding the number of judges on the court should they reach the White House. And of course, this is nothing but a repeat of the infamous court-packing scheme of their big hero, FDR, which happened in the 1930s. 1937 to be precise, his loathsome political attempt to pack the court so that his Social Security and New Deal boondoggles wouldn't rightly be found unconstitutional. Still stinging from his earlier Supreme Court defeats, Roosevelt tried in 1937 to pack the Supreme Court with a proposal to allow the president to appoint an additional justice to the court for every sitting justice who had reached the age of 70 and did not retire. Had this proposal passed, Roosevelt could have immediately appointed 6 new justices favorable to his views, increasing the members of the court from 9 to 15. His plan failed in Congress, but the court later began rubber stamping his policies after a number of opposing justices retired. Wow! Contemporary leftists following in the corrupt path of FDR? Who would have possibly imagined that? Actually, this does give us an opportunity to pull 3 pretty important lessons out of this. First of all, we can see that the anti-federalists were 100% right when they warned people about the danger of the growth of the power of the Supreme Court. They said that the Supreme Court would become the final arbiter of people's rights and they were 100% correct. Second, we can note that Aristotle, 400 years before Christ, was correct when he warned that any government that was at least to be slowed down from infringing on more and more of people's rights had to have a written constitution. But this unfortunately brings us back to point number one, which is that if the people ruling on whether or not the government is infringing on more and more of their rights actually work for the government, then that's kind of a bad deal. And that brings us to our third point. One of the most important, I think, in American history. It came from 19th century scholar Lysander Spooner, who wrote in his essay, No Treason, that the Constitution itself is not really a legal contract that applies to anyone. Your grandparents can't sign a contract binding you to it because you didn't have a say, just like you can't sign a contract for your progeny 200 years from now. And yet this is the system under which everyone operates. If we're going to operate under this very dangerous system and we're stuck with it, at least we can ask those people who are in those offices created by the US Constitution to abide by their oaths and promises about the Constitution, rather than constantly skirting it and, when they don't get their way, trying to change the rules. How about that? Just a little bit of honesty from the people who are on the public dole right now and will get a lot of money in their retirements when they leave the Senate, and yet constantly pay no attention to the very document that gives them their seats in power. It's like a bizarro world. Anyway, thank you for sharing this time with me, and thank you so much for sharing these videos. Remember, this is a crucial time, if you're not aware about this, a very crucial time to make sure that we take it into our own hands to share this information with others, because a lot of the big corporations that are dealing with social media out there aren't really helping us very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For MRC TV, I'm Gardner Goldsmith.